Okay, wow, you've really outdone yourself this time with the amount of research material.
Well, I figured we needed a real deep dive.
Articles and documentaries, sure.
Yeah.
But even ancient religious texts.
Yeah, it's a pretty big topic this time.
It looks like we're going all in on the ancient astronaut theory. Trying to figure out
It's a fascinating one, isn't it?
if ancient humans were really visited by aliens.
And if so, what kind of impact that might have had.
On some of the most sacred sites and beliefs we have today. Big questions.
Huge. We'll be looking at some incredible places. The Temple Mount, Mecca.
Even Easter Island. Wow, this could be a journey.
It is. And you know, what I find so fascinating
What's that?
is how many cultures all over the world have these stories of gods descending from the sky.
Right, and the ancient astronaut theory basically says, well,
Maybe they weren't gods as we understand them.
but just advanced beings with technology that look like magic.
Exactly. Misinterpreted encounters, you could say.
Compelling idea. So, where do we even begin with all this?
Well, why don't we start with some of the physical locations you dug up?
Sounds good. Let's see, we have Jerusalem's Temple Mount and the Kaaba in Mecca.
Both incredibly important to billions of people.
Sacred sites, yeah.
Yeah.
But both also have these little details.
That really make you think, don't they?
The ancient astronaut theorists latch onto these details.
They sure do.
Like they're clues.
Maybe they are. What do you think? The Temple Mount is supposed to be where God?
Touchdown. Yeah, it's central to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam.
Exactly. And then you've got the Ark of the Covenant in the mix.
Oh, right. With all those stories about it maybe containing some crazy power source.
A power source we wouldn't understand, maybe.
Alien tech. And you even found stuff about King Solomon controlling demons with a magic ring.
It's like, how do you explain that with conventional history?
It does sound a bit far out, I'll admit. And then there's the Kaaba, your research mentioned.
What, Blackstone?
Right. Some people think it could be a meteorite.
Which is wild if you think about it.
It could completely change how we understand the origins of Islam.
Potentially, yeah. Like, was it something special before Islam even came about?
Worshipped for a totally different reason.
Who knows? And it's not just the black stone. The alignment of the Kaaba itself is
Super precise.
incredibly aligned with certain stars and solstices.
Even today, that'd be tough to pull off. How did they manage it?
Exactly. Ancient astronaut theorists say, well, maybe they had help.
From someone up there.
Yeah?
It's certainly food for thought.
It is. And that actually brings us to a recurring theme in all this research you've done.
Which is...
The idea that humans, with the tools they had back then...
couldn't have possibly built some of these structures.
Right, like without some outside assistance.
I'm seeing that. Like the Ajanta Caves in India. That level of precision.
It boggles the mind, doesn't it?
They're carved to align with solstices perfectly.
And then you have the churches of Lalibela in Ethiopia.
Literally carved out of the mountainsides.
Even today, engineers are like, how the heck did they do that?
It makes you wonder, right? Was it really just chisels and hammers?
Some people say no way. And then, of course, there's Baalbek in Lebanon.
Oh, yeah. That one is crazy.
With that gigantic platform built with some of the largest stones ever used in construction.
I remember reading that. It's hard to even picture how they moved those things, let alone...
Exactly. And some people think it wasn't just 8-hour platform.
What do you mean?
They believe it was a landing pad.
For spacecraft.
You got it. I know, mainstream archaeologists say it was the Romans.
But I can see why that wouldn't satisfy everyone.
Oh, not at all. Especially when you consider the sheer scale of it, the precision.
Like Roman tech just doesn't seem up to the task.
And to make things even more interesting, one of your sources mentioned
What's that?
the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest written stories we have.
No.
Some people interpret it as describing rocket-like vehicles at Baalbek.
No way. Okay, so we have incredible structures.
That seemed impossible for the time.
Technologies we can't explain. And then there's this other element that keeps popping up.
What's that?
Gold. It seems like everywhere these supposed aliens went, there's gold involved.
It's true. El Dorado, the mythical city of gold.
The Incan city of Paititi. Stories of gold hidden under the Great Sphinx.
It's like a golden thread woven through all these ancient astronaut theories.
So what's the deal with gold? Why is it so important?
Well, it's always been incredibly valuable, right? But it also has these unique properties.
Like what?
It's super resistant to corrosion. It's an excellent conductor.
So it'd be useful for technology.
Very useful. Some of your sources even went into the whole modern-day alchemy thing.
Wait, are you saying they think aliens came here to mine gold?
It's a theory some people have. Whether it was the main reason,
Or just something they needed?
or maybe something they left behind and it became ingrained in our cultures.
Because it was so valuable?
Right.
And we didn't know where it really came from?
Exactly. It's definitely something to think about. It really does make you wonder, doesn't it? This whole idea of alien influence.
It's wild. And speaking of things that make you wonder,
What's that?
you found research on some incredible structures.
Yeah.
Places that, even with modern tech, would be crazy hard to build.
Oh, absolutely. Like Karnak in Egypt, for instance.
With those massive obelisks.
Exactly. Covered in super intricate carvings.
The precision? Right.
It's insane. Even today, engineers and architects are baffled.
It really makes you think, like, how did they do that? Did ancient humans really have...
The tools and the know-how.
I mean, are we saying they had lasers or something?
Well, some ancient astronaut theorists think so. They point to the tool marks on those obelisks.
And they say it looks like modern machining.
Yeah, it's a pretty controversial theory.
But I can see why they'd think that.
Oh, for sure. And then there's the Hypogeum in Malta.
Right, that underground complex with the weird chambers.
Especially that oracle room. It's supposed to have these unique acoustical properties.
Something about sonic manipulation, right?
Yeah, some researchers believe the people who built it knew how to harness sound.
In ways we're just starting to understand now.
Exactly. Like, could they have used it for levitation, communication, even weapons?
It sounds like science fiction. But who knows, right?
Right. And, you know, when you step back and look at the big picture,
It's not just about individual structures.
no, it's about the global nature of it all.
We have these incredible sites all over the world,
Americas, Middle East, Europe, Asia, you name it.
all with these seemingly impossible feats of engineering and design.
It's a pattern, some would say.
A global network.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that ancient astronaut theorists find so compelling.
Like, how could all these cultures, separated by oceans and continents,
Have come up with such similar things.
unless they were connected somehow?
Right. And that's where the alien influence comes in.
A shared knowledge passed down from above.
Potentially. Like, your research highlighted Teotihuacan in Mexico.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Similarities to both the Giza pyramids A and D aligns with Orion's belt.
Just like some of the Egyptian pyramids do.
Exactly. And then there's Vijayanagra in India.
What's special about that one?
Ancient texts describe flying machines called Vimanas.
Flying machines. Wow.
Yeah, pretty wild, right?
So are we saying that all these cultures
Were visited by the same extraterrestrial beings.
sharing their knowledge, and
Maybe even helping them build these incredible structures.
it's mind-blowing. And speaking of mind-blowing,
What's that?
we have to talk about the Garden of Eden. Your research went deep on this one.
It's a fascinating story, isn't it?
Was it a real place? And if so,
Could it have been, as some of your sources suggest?
an alien laboratory where humans were first created?
It's a question that has sparked countless theories and debates.
The satellite imagery of the Persian Gulf, the Sumerian texts about the Anunnaki.
It really makes you rethink everything you thought you knew.
It does. But before we get too carried away with the Garden of Eden,
What else is on your mind?
there are a couple of other places from the research I want to touch on.
Oh yeah, which ones?
Rosny Chateau in France and Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland.
Ah, those are both steeped in mystery and intrigue.
They really are. Rennes Chateau, with that inscription over the church door.
Terribilis es locus iste.
Yeah, it's often misinterpreted as, this place is terrible.
But your sources suggest a different meaning, right?
Something more like, this place is awesome, or even, this place is powerful.
Like a warning, almost.
Right? And Rosslyn Chapel is just as enigmatic.
Filled with those strange carvings.
The Green Man especially. What's that doing in a Christian chapel?
It's a good question. Some people think it points to a deeper meaning,
Hidden knowledge. Maybe even connected to the Holy Grail.
which of course is shrouded in its own mystery.
I've always been fascinated by that. Could it have really been an alien artifact?
Some ancient astronaut theorists believe so, but there are many interpretations, of course.
It's a puzzle with so many pieces.
And we may never have all of them.
Speaking of puzzles, your research also mentioned those strange cart ruts.
The parallel grooves in the bedrock.
Yeah, some of them go for miles. What
Yeah.
are those all about?
It's a mystery, really. But ancient astronaut theorists have some interesting ideas.
Like what?
They say they could have been part of an ancient transportation system.
For moving heavy things.
Right. Or even, wait for it, spacecraft.
A railway for spacecraft.
Wow.
That's a thought.
It is. And it all ties back into this bigger idea.
They're missing pieces of the puzzle.
Exactly. And that maybe the ancient astronaut theory can help us find those pieces.
To look at history in a whole new way.
To consider the possibility that we were visited, influenced, maybe even taught
by beings from another world.
It's a pretty radical idea.
But it's so fascinating. Don't you think about who we are, where we come from?
About our place in the universe.
Well said. And honestly, I feel like we're just scratching the surface here.
Oh yeah, there's still so much to explore.
The mysteries of the Great Sphinx, the potential for hidden chambers.
Lost knowledge waiting to be rediscovered.
It's an exciting thought, isn't it? You know, as we've been talking about all these sites
Yeah.
and theories.
It's been quite the journey.
There's this one iconic monument that keeps coming to mind.
Which one?
The Great Sphinx of Giza. It's such a mystery.
Oh, absolutely. That human head, the lion's body.
What did your research say about it? Anything interesting?
Well, there were some arguments about the timeline
The timeline of what?
of its construction. Some researchers think it's way older than we think.
Older than the 2500 BC date. How much older?
Thousands of years, potentially. They point to the water erosion.
Oh, the Sphinx's body.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
it had to have been exposed to heavy rainfall.
For a long time.
Yeah. And the climate in Egypt hasn't been like that for a very, very long time.
So it would have to predate.
The conventional timeline by quite a bit.
Wow, that would be huge. And it kind of ties into those other anomalies we talked about.
Like the advanced machining.
Right, like maybe the Sphinx was built with that same lost tech.
It's a possibility. And then there's the whole thing about hidden chambers.
And tunnels underneath. Is there any truth to that?
Well, they've done ground-penetrating radar scans.
What do they find?
Some weird anomalies, for sure. They suggest that there could be.
Hidden chambers. Passages.
Maybe even both. Some people think it leads to the Hall of Records.
The Hall of Records. Is that like a real thing or just a legend?
It depends on who you ask, I guess.
Huh?
But the idea is that it's the...
Repository of ancient knowledge.
Yeah. Lost history, advanced tech. Maybe even stuff about...
Alien contact?
It's not impossible, right?
The Hall of Records filled with all those secrets. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Your sources even mentioned.
Atlantis.
Yeah. And something about a portal or a gateway to the stars.
It's pretty wild stuff, I know. But it's fascinating to think about.
It is.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, like, did the ancient Egyptians know about this stuff?
Well, they saw the Sphinx as a guardian, right? A protector.
Of sacred knowledge.
Yeah. Maybe they built it on top of a site that was already considered sacred.
A place of power?
Maybe even a gateway, who knows?
It's mind-blowing. And of course, we can't forget about...
The gold.
Right. All those rumors about gold hidden under the Sphinx.
It's like a recurring theme, isn't it?
Everywhere we turn, there's gold. Do you think there's a connection?
Between the gold and the aliens.
Yeah.
It's hard to say for sure, but if that Hall of Records does exist...
It probably contains more than just old texts.
Right. Maybe artifacts, ancient tech.
Maybe even proof of those alchemists who could turn lead into gold.
It's all speculation, but it's fun to speculate.
It is. You know, as we've been going through all this,
Yeah.
it feels like we're putting together this giant puzzle
With pieces scattered all over the world.
across time and space.
Exactly. Ancient structures, strange symbols.
Technologies that just vanished.
Like they were never even here.
And at the center of it all, there's this big question.
The biggest question of all, maybe.
Where do we come from? Were we created by gods? By aliens?
It's the ultimate mystery.
It is. And maybe we'll never know the full answer.
But that doesn't mean we shouldn't keep searching.
Right. The more we learn about the ancient world,
The closer we might get to understanding.
our own place in the universe.
Exactly. And maybe, just maybe, the truth is out there,
Hidden in plain sight.
waiting for us to discover it.
So what do you think? After all this, has anything changed for you?
About how you view the world, history, our place in it all.
It's definitely been a mind-bending experience. We've gone from
Ancient temples
to lost cities.
to a potential underwater Garden of Eden,
We've talked about symbols, technology, gold,
and the possibility that we're not alone.
that maybe we never have been alone.
It's a lot to take in, for sure,
It is. But I think the most important thing is,
to stay curious.
yeah, to keep asking questions,
Huh.
to not dismiss the legends and myths.
Because they might be trying to tell us something.
Maybe they hold the key to understanding our past.
And maybe, just maybe, the answers are right there in front of us.
Written in the stars, in ancient stone, in the gold that's captivated humanity for centuries.
It's something to think about, isn't it?
It definitely is. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. It's been...
My pleasure. Always happy to explore the mysteries with you.
And to all our listeners out there, keep looking up, keep questioning.
And keep an open mind. You never know what you might discover.